What do you do when an employee leaves for greener pastures only to return weeks, months, or even years later asking for their job back? What's up guys, Ian Sandusky from Lakewood Machine and Tool back here again for Practical Machinist. And today on Shop Talk, we're gonna be diving into exactly that question. But before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications below to make sure you never miss a video. Let's get into it. Before we get started here for this week's episode of Machine Shop Talk, we would like to put out a call for shop tour videos. We, with Practical Machinists, have had the pleasure of getting to go inside dozens of some of the most incredible small and large machine shops out there across North America and even some, in Europe and South America. And this is an awesome way to get your shop featured, to help show off what you're doing in your shop, show off, your story, show off your capabilities. And most importantly, guys, this is absolutely free. If you're interested in shooting one of these for us, please send an email to info@practicalmachinist.com. This does not need to be some kind of huge production. Guys, I shot my shop tour on my iPhone. You can do that as well. So if you're interested, please get in touch at info@practicalmachinist.com. Let's get into this week's episode. Okay, so as mentioned, we are going to be diving back into the Practical Machinist forums again. I was on the shop management and ownership subforum, as I'm wont to do. It's a fantastic resource. I love reading it. Lots of very, very interesting questions. And this one caught my attention this week. It really caught my attention because I found it as someone who has been involved with running a shop for quite a while, and also this shop has existed since 1988. I was born in 1988. I've been raised in the shop environment, so I've seen this scenario play out so many times over the years. So I found this very, very interesting, and I hope you do as well. If you've been involved with running a shop or owning a shop, I guarantee you've been in this predicament. So hopefully you also find this as interesting as I did. So a person came on the shop management and ownership subforum, and they had a situation where they had an employee. And this employee, he'd been a machinist at the shop, it sounded like for something like 10 years. And the guy who was posting said, this guy is a good employee for the most part. He has good attendance, he shows up, does mostly good work. He did say he has a bit of an attitude that can be difficult to deal with at times. Also said, his work is fine. So take from that what you will. That was just the way this was framed, so there it is. But the situation was that this employee that he was talking about had put in their 2 weeks notice, effective immediately, and would be leaving in 2 weeks for another opportunity. This other opportunity, it paid better, had better benefits. The person who was asking this question had no illusions about that. I think it was a slightly different industry, so that industry just pays higher, that industry just has better benefits. And the shop owner was essentially wishing this guy well. He said, I thought this was a great opportunity for them. I hope it goes well for them. There was no ill will that way. There was no anger towards this person leaving. The situation was that it sounded like, this is what the person said, this had happened before with this employee. So apparently about 4 years ago, this person's been there for 10 years, so 4 years ago, this person had done pretty much this exact same thing. They had gone out, they found another gig, they were excited about it, put in their 2 weeks, they left. But then about 4 days after leaving, they came back and asked for their job back. And clearly, the shop owner took them back. The situation and the question you wanted to pose to the forum was, what exactly is the best thing to do in this scenario? He has a feeling that this situation might happen again, where this guy goes off, tries it out, doesn't like it, and might come back and ask for their job back. So should he hire him back if that happens? Should he, wish him well, but say, you know what, this is kind of done? He was even considering, do I have a conversation with this guy before he actually leaves to maybe address this? And the responses on the forum were really interesting to me because they ran the gamut from things that I would definitely agree with and say myself, to other opinions that, while are valid, I probably wouldn't recommend because in my experience, it's not the best way to do things. But it was really interesting to see how broad the differences of opinions were on this question. So the first set of responses I'd like to highlight were the guys who said, absolutely no way. Nope, do not do it, do not bring him back, see you later. This segment of the posters, I would imagine, are likely owners or shop managers or supervisors who have been burned by this kind of situation before. They probably had guys that they thought they could count on that this kind of situation came up and they got burned. You know, it created headaches for them, it created problems from them. They probably weren't prepared to run their shop without the people who left. I mean, we all kind of know the person in our shop. I think every shop has one or two, or maybe more, where if they left, it would be extremely difficult to run without them. Maybe they're the only programmer. Maybe they're the only setup guy in small shops. In big shops, maybe they're the only people who know how to run this one really difficult kind of job. Maybe they're the most skilled. Maybe they put in all the overtime. Maybe they're the overtime guy, so now the overtime guy leaves. Now, what do we do? Other guys can't pick up that slack. Who knows? It can be a very, very scary situation as a shop owner or manager if you find yourself in that situation where you have a key person leave. We just talked about this in another video where a key person was talking about leaving, and even from their perspective, trying to figure out how they ease this situation through. And as a shop owner and manager, it can be very frightening, because what do you do? What if they're the only guy that knows how to run that one machine? Now that one machine is gonna sit there. You might still have payments on that machine. That machine can't run. It's a situation that happens. While I think what we're probably seeing here from the absolutely no, do not rehire this person people is that they didn't prepare properly to have someone leave. I really hope they learn from this experience. I could be putting my own opinion onto what I'm seeing there. Maybe some of these people just don't like rehiring people. But if I'm reading that correctly, I'd really hope that they learn from the situation, because I've had this happen before and it really drove the point home to me where you lose a key person. And it's really driven home that myself and my management team and my guys, we all need to be a little more proactive with making sure that we're cross-training. Yeah, it's great we have guys that are pretty much just mill guys. We should be training them on the lathe too, and vice versa. We shouldn't have only one guy that knows how to run wire EDM. We shouldn't have one guy who's the only guy that knows how to set up this job, or the only guy that knows how to get through some file system that's no good, but it's all how he knows how it works. So if he leaves, we can't find programs. These situations have all happened. So it's important to make sure that if you are someone who is in charge of hiring or staffing or a supervisor, owner, manager, whatever it may be, that you prepare yourself. You don't want to say that anybody is disposable. Nobody is disposable. Everybody helps. But making sure that you don't have so much of your business leaning on one key person that if they leave, it's going to create you headaches. Because that situation also for that person, even if they're at your shop, probably isn't a great situation to be in. Yeah, I know some guys love to be the only guy that knows how to do this and that, but for the most part, that's just more burden on them if they're the only guy that knows how to do something or the only guy that works overtime. So making sure you're spreading that knowledge out and building everybody up can help prevent the situation and maybe stop this knee-jerk reaction to say, no, if they leave, they're gone, they're dead to me. Just my thoughts on that. So summing that up, while what we're probably seeing here in the people who don't want to retire are people who dealt with that situation. But I mean, any of you guys who have that opinion, please let us know in the comments below if you would say, nope, if someone leaves, they're gone. Because I'd like to understand kind of the thought process behind that, aside from blind anger, I guess. The second set of answers were essentially the flip side to this argument. And they were people replying saying, pretty much no matter what, yep, I would hire them back in a second. 100%, I would hire them back. I saw one poster who replied and said that if someone is working at his shop, they make his shop money, they show up, they're good to work with, and if they had left for another job, let's say for 2 weeks, and then asked for their job back, that guy said basically I would just pretend they were sick for 2 weeks in my head and get right back into it. That's one way to do things. There are a lot of people who agreed with this point, and to a degree, so do I. At the end of the day, if someone's given you their 2 weeks notice, they didn't leave in a bad way. They didn't storm out and burn the bridge, or steal a bunch of tools on their way out the door, or go and delete all your files or whatever it may be. I don't think it's wrong to hire them back on. You know, remember, this is business. If you let your pride and ego get in the way, as I know all of us can at times, all you're gonna do is prevent yourself from a potentially better situation. You know, if someone quits and I get my back up and say, do you know what? No, you're gone. I never wanna speak to you again, and I burn that bridge as the employer or the supervisor or the manager, what's gonna happen? You know, that guy's never gonna come back here. What if he went and tried that out, decided it wasn't for him, came back? I could have had him work here for another 10 years. He could have been the supervisor in 2 years. He could have made my life easier. You know, just if you want to get down to money, he could have made me a lot of money, and it could have made him a lot of money. But because I, as an employer or a manager, decided to kill that relationship, I'm missing out. When we say don't burn bridges, I know we hammer this home a lot in this video series, but it's because it goes both ways. No, do you know what, as an employee, unless you're in, you know, a threat of danger or violence, or you're being abused or you're not being paid, you should, if you want to, try to preserve the relationship. And that goes doubly for employers. And I feel like employers and managers and shop owners may forget that because there is a power imbalance there. I think it's important to remember that and keep that in mind when people want to leave. Listen, people are going to leave. There is nothing wrong as an employee. There's nothing wrong with any employee anywhere going out and looking for new opportunities. It happens. We're all going to do it. You know, I think we all want to hope that in our wildest fantasies that our apprentices that start here at our shops will someday retire at our shops. It's a great way to want to do business. That's not reality. People are going to leave, and they have every right to. You know, people want to find the best situations for themselves and chase down opportunities. There's nothing wrong with that. If you hold that against them, it's only going to come back to bite you sooner or later. You may not know it, but it's going to bite you. To relate this back to my own experience, we've definitely had this happen where I once, well, it was a guy that worked here when I was in high school. Brilliant machinist, very, very good machinist. Could make machines do backflips. He had one of those ways of thinking sideways, where you try to attack a job from one way, and he would just completely come around another way that you wouldn't even see, well, at least I wouldn't even see coming, and be able to do that job faster, more efficiently. Just one of those real good minds on him, and he was a hard worker. But he left, and I think he left for probably 5 or 6 years. He went and took another opportunity. And he ended up coming back. And you know what? Because, I mean, I wasn't doing the hiring at the time, but because he came back, the relationship was maintained, we had him here for probably another 5 years. He did leave for another opportunity eventually, and that's fine. But I mean, we still, if we hadn't had him, we would probably still be behind in terms of the way we go about programming. We probably wouldn't have certain machines in here or approaches of using those machines that we had. And we'd be farther behind today than if we hadn't brought him back. We still use some fixtures this guy built. We still use some programs this guy did 5 years ago, 6 years ago. If we had gotten our backs up and said, no, you know what, you left, you're gone, very tangibly, we would be behind as a business compared to where we are now. So it's important to make sure that you do keep your ego out of it. I advise being open to it, which kind of leads us to our third set of answers. And this is probably the closest to my true opinion, and I know this is a bit waffly, but it is that opinion that was shared on the forum was, yes, I would hire them back, but basically it's circumstantial. I saw some responses on there that really put this in perspective for me. Some of the employers out there and the supervisors, managers, whoever they may be, it sounds like they've dealt with some machinists over the years that do this a lot. And when I say do this, I mean leave and come back. Essentially, these are the kind of machinists or fabricators or whatever role they have in the company who are always out there looking for new opportunities and taking them. And then when that doesn't work out, they come back. You know, as I said, there's nothing wrong with an employee going and trying to find new opportunities. That's great. That said, you do need to be able to rely on people at your company. I think we're at an age now where most rational people understand that loyalty to company is not the way to live your life. That said, you do need to be able to count on people in certain roles somewhat. You know, if someone is a great employee for 10 years, they decide to try a different opportunity and then come back, that's one thing. If you have a guy who every 2 years or every year is leaving for 2 months, 3 months, a year, and basically just keeps coming back to you because you are safe or you are good enough compared to these other people, it's really difficult to rely on that, because think of all the other people in your shop. Maybe if they are in a key role, maybe they're a supervisor or a programmer or whatever, you're essentially shuffling around your entire business hierarchy or work plan to accommodate someone who doesn't really want to work at your shop and is using you as a backup. Some people are fine with this. Like I said in that previous set of responses, some guys will say, hey, if they're here, they're working. If they're not, they're not. That's fine. I would say make sure that you are at least being cognizant. There's a difference between supporting people going to try new things and go and learn and seek new opportunities, and being a doormat. I think it's important to keep in mind, some guys said if they go once and come back, that's fine. If they do it twice, no good. Some guys said, if they're doing it all the time, it's no good. All I'm trying to drive home there is, I think the proper way to approach this, and I agree with these people, is to always be open to it, but make sure you are looking out for your shop and your shop culture and the rest of your employees above a situation like that. If someone is coming and going and making life harder for the rest of your employees, now the rest of your employees are gonna be upset and they're gonna leave. You need to watch out for the guys who are putting in the work at your shop, rather than trying to accommodate someone who's just bouncing around for no reason. In any case, guys, I would like to know in the comments below what your thoughts are on this. Have you left a job and gone back? Have you done it multiple times? If you're a shop owner, manager, supervisor, how would you deal with this? Is there a set number of times they're allowed to do that? Do you support guys going out to other jobs every couple of years? Some guys probably enjoy this because they go out, they learn stuff, they bring it back. There's a lot of ways to look at this. So in the comments below, I would like to know your opinions on this. In any case, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications below to make sure you never miss a video. Thank you very much for watching. You take care.